Welcome to this episode of DIY3DTech.com. In this episode, we're going to follow up with the IceSL tutorials. And what I'm going to show you today is how to take an STL file and convert it into an SVG file so you can either cut it on a laser or with a CNC, etc. So anything where you can import an SVG file, you'll be able to take your STL. Now this is going to do it in slices, and I'll demonstrate this in a second. So we have IceSL opened, and I've loaded basically a 2D object. So this is a pegboard object, and what I want to do is convert this pegboard object, which is clearly an STL file here, into an SVG file. So the way we do that is we go over to this pane, and then up here where we have slice to G code, we will change this to slice to SVG. And you'll notice that we get a change in the menu, and in the menu we have discretion steps in X and Y coordinates, and basically this is how much of an XY step that this is going to take when it resolves the object from obviously its current to tessellated form. I pretty much suggest leaving this as it is. You can kind of play around with this because you could also adjust it for your tool size that you intend to use, whether it be a laser, which you'll get far higher resolution, or a CNC with a cutting bit. But for right now, we're just going to keep this because it's going to work for us. Slicing thickness. So this is going to be something you're going to want to play with. Now, since this is contiguous throughout its 2D form. Basically, this is a 2D object that's been linearly extruded. So layer 1 is going to be the same as layer 5 and so on. You may want to change this if you decide to take a more complicated STL object and stack it, because this is also could be a poor man's way of doing 3D within the CNC world. And I may do an episode on that in the future. Basically what you would do is obviously take different layers of the SVG file into your CAM program and denote those as different layer depths and have your bit cut down, and then the next layer, then the next layer as pockets. But I'm not going to get into that right now. We're just going to leave it as 0.2, which will work. Processing tile size, this is more so to how the GPU is going to handle it. I just leave this as it is. So after we get all these set, and basically for the most part, if you're dealing with a 2.5D objects such as this, these are basically all good. We're going to go up here and we're going to click to run. Now, one of the things that this is going to do is pull up a dialog box to where do you want to put it. Now, this is the one little bit of a bug that I have found. So I've got an IceSL directory here, and then you notice up here I'm going to select SVG files, and then you notice down here it's named pegboard 90 by 90 because it's a 90 millimeter by 90 millimeter pegboard STL. So it keeps the name as the STL, and I'm going to click save. And then what's going to happen, you see here on the screen, it's doing its little thing with percentage-wise. Okay, now that its slicer is finished, or IceSL has finished slicing, let's go and take a look at this. So I'm going to pull up just File Explorer. Now, one of the things you notice, I told it to save it here in IceSL SVG files. It's empty. But if we look back here where the source pegboard file is, we notice we now have a subdirectory by this name. For some reason, there seems to be a little bit of a bug with this, but it is what it is, I guess, at this time. So I'm going to open up this file, and what we'll see here is we now have a number of SVG files starting at the bottom slice going to the top slice. Now, since this is basically a representative 2D object or 2.5D object converted to 2D, I'm going to go ahead and open this just by double clicking on it. Now notice I have this associated with Inkscape because I use Inkscape basically for 90% of my SVG work. And so I'm going to go ahead and make this full screen. Now you'll notice that this is the paper or plane which it's created, and here is the object. And one of the things to note, this creates a complete object. So these holes are actually part of the greater object. Now, say for example, I want to take this into the K40 Whisper laser application to laser cut this. I want to stroke. There we go. Got to pick the right one here, folks. And I'm just going to turn this to 255, and bingo. Now, all I do is have to save this SVG file off, and I can now laser cut it and have this object. And again, I think this is a very powerful tool for taking 2.5D objects and bringing them out of the 3D print world into the 2.5D world of laser cutters and CNC. So this is again why I see this as being a very powerful tool, because prototyping is far cheaper in the 3D world, but it's not as resilient as if you cut say this piece out of solid acrylic. So this is where the power is, I think, because you can model this in IceSL-forge, and then take this 3D print it. Okay, it works, and then now you want to create a production run of this, but you want to say cut it out of 3mm acrylic. You can now take that same model file and convert it to an SVG, import it into either a CAM or laser workflow. So anyways, hopefully you found this interesting. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget Swag Shop up in the corner. There'll be more of these tutorials on IceSL. And if you have any questions about it, hit me up in the comments below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.
Please click like below and subscribe to the channel.